Right. Good evening, folks. Welcome to FMA discussion. But before we go to that, I would like to greet all our brothers across the pond a happy Independence Day. Happy 4th of July. Okay, stay safe while doing your fireworks. Okay, so this is episode 165. And tonight, we are going to interview Guro X or Guro Alexander Hernandez. Okay, I'm quite excited because this is the first interview here in UK and Europe area. So we already have started branching of some of the interviews, and I'll be carrying them. So wish me luck, guys. Okay, so Guru X, okay, is a Filipino born in Austria. He is the president and chief instructor of the Filipino Martial Arts Federation of Austria. Um, and he was chosen by 5 grandmasters to represent their style. He runs 2 schools, and I think he's opening his third one tonight. So this is a very interesting interview. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Guru Alexander Hernandez of Austria. Good evening, Guru.
Ah, Good evening, Paul. Thank you, FMA discussion. Hello, world. Also, shout out to America. Happy Independence Day. I also want to greet my family, my students, my friends, and everyone who's watching this show. Thank you very much for having me and giving me this opportunity and platform to present the Austrian landscape, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, it is actually a pleasure to have you in the interview because, I mean, we have connected with each other over the years, but it was through Stay Bladed. And I know that you run your classes there, and I know that you represent Tuhon Ray Leonardo. But until now, it's only now that I found out that you're basically representing five styles all throughout. Okay, so I mean, without further ado, uh, how did you start your FMA journey?
If you compare it to a former career that everyone normally has, I started really late. It was in the late 20s. Just I think I started. I was 2007. I think August or September 2007. Um, but before that, half year before that, I was doing my research, just practicing any martial arts. And a good friend of mine, I will never forget that. He came across with the term Kali, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what that is. So and also at that time the Bone series came out, so okay, that's
Yeah,
what I want to
yeah.
do. And what I didn't know, it was Filipino martial arts. I was so surprised, you know, that we have our own art, you know, and it was so distant. And yeah, and that's why I fell in love. So I started, in local schools here in Vienna,
Mm-hmm.
and still I was hungry, really hungry. Um, and I was stumbling upon the videos on YouTube of 200 Ronaldo, Filipino combat systems, and there was no school here in Austria where I could find it. Um, so um, I had the curriculums that were on videos, So
Mm-hmm.
we started learning from them. I can remember, it started in my living room. That's why in every place where I go, I call it the living room because it has a living history, and
Yeah.
we do life history. Okay, because if you're dead, you cannot you cannot tell the story. So and yeah, so this is where my career started, and from my living room. Um, and yeah, it was amazing. 1 year. We practiced really from minute to minute. We went through the sequences. Okay, we stick, and now we're doing that. I was preparing the classes. I I was calling. I called ourselves the starting five. If you all know about basketball, and the starting
Yeah,
five,
yeah,
you
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah,
more five
yeah,
important
yeah,
players. So
yeah.
yeah, this is what I
Your
called us.
dream team.
Uh, yeah, and it was it was a crazy journey and still now it's unbelievable just from a normal person, just watching YouTube videos and just practicing and then moving around and then it hooked me up and then one day so let's get tested and the
Okay.
next
So,
country nearby was Hungary, so we presented to the local representative at that time and he tested us 2 levels already, and that I think it was in 2011, yes, 2011, where we made contact the first time with 200 Radio Naldo, and we started 2010. So
Mhm.
next year will be our 10th year anniversary already,
Wow.
which we were really happy.
Congratulations in advance.
Um, well, thank you. And yeah, and it was also kind of tough because the 200 Radio Naldo wanted to set foot in Austria many times. It failed
Mhm.
to somehow, it said, and he was not really pleased, or Austria was not in his good memory, I would call it, you know. Um, but somehow he saw something in me, I would call it,
Okay.
that made me interesting because I had no black belt or any belt. I had just only a yellow belt,
Mhm.
yellow belt at that time, which is equivalent to level 2 in our system. And the other competitors, they had black belts already. They run schools and so on, and they had were protected from other FCS guys, and they said no, you cannot be this, you cannot be FCS representative. Okay, this was an internal part, but I think I can go about with it because this is part of my journey and something
Yeah.
that um, and my confidence already, I told him, you know what, I will be the representative. We will see, okay, because it's a Filipino thing, you know.
Yeah.
And in the end, I just bluffed and I won.
I mean, it's
But
interesting because normally, um, like myself, I started with other martial arts. Although I started my martial arts journey when I was already 16. In FMA, I was kind of like a late bloomer, but you started straight to the FMA.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Where,
and and with his guidance, I think that's what I've seen now. At a certain point of view, I have a lot of practicing time, and knowing a lot of people, touching hands with a lot of people. You get some experience, you know. And
okay.
of course, Ron Ray was long time in this business, so he knows what he's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Qualities, okay? It's not about the ranks or what it's looking for qualities, for represent because of course a representative is an ambassador,
Yeah.
which is, in my opinion, you know, higher rank than a black belt because you don't need a black belts. You have much more black belts, but the representative, has a higher responsibility. It's not only carrying a black belt, you carry the whole system and the
Yeah.
society behind these men. That's why, introduction, yes, you can see all the logos, but for me, I'm running from men. Okay, so that's why I directed all to my teachers and also big hello to you guys because I'm so thankful. Starting in the early Tuhon Radio album, Grandmaster Rene Thompson,
Okay.
Tuhon Romel Total,
All right.
Tuma Abon,
Okay.
and the fifth one was also in between is Tipu Asivahiaya from Malaysia, you know.
Mhm.
And I'm personally all in contact with this masters,
Okay.
I traveled, to them or invite them here. Um, and with COVID and so on, my government training is mostly online,
Online.
and I think I have one of the biggest collection. I think it's 27 gigabytes only. Oh,
Okay.
and I think I
So,
have the most exquisite. Yeah.
all right. So you have told us your journey with Tuhon Ray. So who was the next
Yeah.
grandmaster that you?
It was years later. It was years later. It was exactly in that order. Okay. I think it was 2017. That year was appointed at the same at that year, or as a representative for Grandmaster Rene Thompson,
Okay.
for Abanico Tres Puntas, Classical Arnis, um, and Pikiti Tisha World Federation under Tuhon Romel, um, and Total. And
Yeah.
um, how they asked me, I think 1.5 years prior to that, and I told them, I'm happy to be only your student, I don't need more because I was focused on an FCS and I'm a loyal student,
Mm-hmm.
and at that moment, I didn't realize. I mean, I know they were big men already, in this
Yeah.
game, you know, and out of courtesy, I rejected because of the loyalty of 200 Radio Ronaldo, and all of them have a big impact on me, you know.
Hmm.
And then I asked him, um, and and foremost, I want to also shout out to our colleague and brother Damir from Croatia. He was
Yeah.
the one, Alex, who has to, and because he connected me to Grandmaster Nate Thompson, to Tuhon Romel, and to Gapuno Abon. He was the one who's initiating. Oh, Alex, you have to join him. And then, then I asked Tuhon Ray, would you mind, if I join this gentleman? And he said, of course, yes, just do. These are my friends. I said, okay, and let's go for it. You know, and
Yeah, we need to have the mirror at one point as well.
yeah, yeah, very fine gentleman,
Yeah. Yes.
and I'm so thankful, that the big impact, wow, what these people had on me as their mentors, um, because they've seen already qualities again, but I haven't seen for myself because I'm stuck only in my world, playing around. But I think my work ethics, and also this is why I convinced him up front. Um, but I think for me this is normal. But as you can see, other people work differently,
Mhm.
and yes, and for most, I have schools, so that's also a big selling point. And during this career, and before I moved from my living room to a gym, it was also the biggest gym at that time in Austria. Um, we were hired, for James Bond premiere, for Skyfall,
Oh wow.
and and that's why I sent you this picture. Um, and it was crazy because I was, so now I would call myself a no name, you know, but the public, perception of me, they wanted me already, it was also really fast, if you go in this kind of business or so they just randomly called me, Alex, we are from this company. Are you interested in James? Are you a big James Bond fan? Of course. Okay. Would you do
Who
something to
wouldn't
do
be?
for us? Yeah. Okay, so when will it be? Tomorrow. Okay. So I had less than 24 hours, to make a choreography. So, but it was lunchtime. I said, you know what? Come, come evening today, and then let's rehearse and watch yourself if you're happy about our choreography. And it was because it was also the grand opening of this IMAX cinema. Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and
Okay.
and the big boss of the cinema was coming, and we were his security detail, and some bad guys, of course, tried to kidnap him, and we interfered, and then he came up to the stage. It was really cool, and I was also presented on three different local TV stations,
So
and of
did,
course,
did, did you have to
um,
choreograph for a group of stuntman, or they were
no, they were all my
students? Or...
students. I
Ah,
was just
okay.
all my students. It's much
All right.
more faster to work with the students because we were working on two movies. We were not only because first I was an advisor, but we were so good. In the end, we were hired because we were so good, and it was fitting. It was so crazy. Almost 2 years it took this project to produce a movie. You don't know how
Yeah.
hard it is. In the morning until evening. Always have to have the same setup, and so it was really blessed. Until now, I'm so blessed with going, traveling around the world, and then also the area here, and you know, and get this kind of opportunities. I'm so thankful, and yeah, and this is still the beginning. What I tell to my students. This is it, and I invite everyone to follow us. To share the energy and our adventures, to be exact.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
because this is what creates the memories. Yeah.
Okay. So um, you have mentioned that you have two schools and opening the third one. How
Yeah.
did you? Yeah.
So this is a big announcement. Okay, so we're working on a collaboration. Um, this is here. This cool one here. It will be posted on Guro X site and on my personal site. Anywhere on Facebook, you can find the big details on it. Okay, this school is a shooting club, a shooting school, where normally people from the government train, especially from special
Okay.
forces. Um, military special forces, and also special forces from the police or policemen or students. They train there. And one of the instructors is my student. Okay, and the boss of them is also a big fan of me because I came. We were just practicing. Okay, with live rounds, and we just came into a conversation because I know they teach in Kali. It's the Autopikiti bloodline what they're doing, but it's a really reduced um, system what they're doing. But it works. But I came up front and this is a but if he knows the difference between a trainer and a master, okay,
Yeah.
you know what? And then it wasn't a shock, it was just a crazy, moment because, I had my blade on me, you know. How many of your teachers can do a demo with a live blade, you know? And I did
Okay.
this, my vice president was with me, Michael, hello. Um, he was with me, and then we just give it, a demo with live blades, without killing him. And with of course, with full of control. And I asked him, how many of your instructors can do this? Okay. He was silent at that time, and it was the second time or the third time we were there, this club, practicing. And he said, for himself, okay, this is a good selling point. No. Yeah, this is also my belief. If you, as a warrior, you have, you never know. You know,
Yeah.
when your skills will be asked. And foremost, I got this lecture, of Tuhun Ray when I was in Germany. It was a black belt demo. Because when Germany is a big convention, of FCS in Europe, and it was my first time when I was there as a representative from Austria. And 10 minutes before that, he asked me if I prepared something and what I'm going to show. And I told him nothing. Like, I said, why? Because I'm a yellow belt, so this is a black belt club. With all respect, so what should a yellow belt tell the black belt do?
Okay.
Okay, you have 10 minutes. Um, okay, we can do this. With my training partner and vice president. I asked him, you know what? We have to do a demo, and we have only 8 minutes left. What we are going to do, you know? And yeah, so this lesson was for me really a big moment. Yeah, and it was also recorded, so I'm not happy about it, but it's okay. It's part of my journey. It's part of the learning curve.
Okay.
My English was not good. It was high school level, yes, but it was not sufficient enough, to communicate at that level, where you can transport a system or teach. Okay, so after that moment, I took an extra course, and now I'm native speaker language level, you know, so that I'm certified, on the educational scale, and yeah, just to improve my weaknesses, and
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So you basically have a school that is your students are mostly like into the service, whether military or uh,
Um,
enforcement. Do you also have schools catering to civilians?
yes, because I divide my art or basically FMA, in depending on the environment, they have to execute it. It's also I teach civilians, law enforcement, and military. You know, and the concepts are different, but the mindset is the same. Okay, because what it depends on the rules of engagement. Everyone knows it because as a civilian,
Mm-hmm.
only stopping violence, law enforcement, arresting, and military neutralize. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and my mindset, what I'm prepared all these years is based on combat. It's not on sports.
Yeah.
It's not one on one.
Okay.
It's really high aggressive environment.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is also how I train. I don't train with normal rattan sticks. I've worked with bahi sticks and middleweight sticks. That you're much more harder
Oh, so you
and
always train with a big daddy, as we call it.
um, um, yeah, because I think who had that mentioned it. I think it was Hernandez.
Oops.
Yes, the dynamic of steel and wood is different, of course, different
Yeah, it is.
materials.
It is. It is. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's why for me, I was always practicing with live
Okay.
blades,
So
so that's why I know you did that on the
yeah.
mechanics,
So
for
I'm
that.
interested now. What's the landscape there when it comes to carrying weapon? Because I mean, in the UK, we can't. And anything that
Um,
is basically branded for anything branded for self defense, now. Okay. How about there in Austria?
um, dear world, we live Austria in the middle of Europe, okay? Big shout out. Um, we live in a paradise. With any blades, okay? So like
Wow.
um, ballet song,
Okay.
okay? Um, what else do I have? Some push daggers, okay? Where is it here? Push daggers.
All
We
right.
can carry every almost an automatic. Where is it?
We're going to
Automatic
get into porn, knife porn now,
uh,
guys. Okay, go on.
automatic knife, you know. So, spring assisted knives. This is a really rare one. Only 200 pieces. I made Benchmade did them. So it's really nice. Um, yeah, any kind of blades. Um, what we have, as long as we're not trapped. And this is the Austria is awesome. This is what I can tell about knives. You know, because they understood that the threat um, it's not the tool itself. People are
Mm, it's yeah,
are the danger.
exactly.
So that's
Mm,
why the politics, of course, you can ban all these tools, but you cannot ban bad people. In the end, you
that's
disarm the
true.
good people defending
That's
themselves.
true.
Okay? And that's why,
That's
of course, if you go to UK, what kind of weapons will you carry? Of course, we can improvise. We can use books. We can use ball
yeah,
pen.
yeah.
We can
That's
use a
true.
scarf. Okay.
That's true. Yeah. So I mean, is it only blades that you're allowed to carry? How about pistols?
You need a special license for it. Also, there are two different licenses. First, officially, of course,
Hmm.
um, is to be a weapons owner. Okay, what I am. And
Yeah.
the second is if you can carry a loaded gun in public. Okay,
Oh, okay.
at home. So at home it is okay. You can be armed and like Rambo. Okay, with your ARs or a pistol. Okay, at home it is everything is allowed. But as soon as you leave your home, then you have to have a special license. Only a few
Okay.
people get it. If you're working as a bodyguard or different security departments or police, most like detective, So
Does it matter if you carry it concealed or open?
in Austria, it is better to carry it concealed.
Concealed.
Okay, but
Mm.
yeah, so like the bodyguards, like bothered from the embassy or so. It depends, on what job profession they have. But mostly it is more discreet. It is not open carry, not the Wild West, like cowboys going out. So it is all discreet, you know.
Okay. So
Um,
with the well ability of citizens to carry a weapon, how's the how's the crime rate?
um, I can tell. In Austria, Vienna, Vienna is the capital city of Austria. Um, we have a low crime level. Of course, any crime here is a big disaster. Okay,
Mm.
like last week, my mom's also sad about it. A 13-year-old was drugged, raped, and killed.
Wow.
13 years old, and I have three children, two daughters. You know, and um, but in the end, the crime rate is really here low. So that's why if we're in Europe or the eastern part of Europe, there's a lower crime rate. Of course, crime happens everywhere. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
of
But
course,
at least
everyone tries to do a study about it. Um, but we really live in a safe zone. Everyone in Europe does. It depends. Some crazy people are always around. You know, and this is what we don't know.
yeah. But
You know.
do you think there's a correlation between the low crime rate and the ability of the citizens to protect themselves with with a blade or with a pistol?
I,
or do
most
they basically
attacks,
have like certain degree of respect that is already in the society because of that?
um, most attacks are carried out with blades. Okay,
Okay.
well, and also sometimes, okay, firearms. Okay,
Hmm.
because we have at that moment, this is what they're observing. We have a high rate of femicide, so that means a lot of women get killed. And
Hmm.
some of them get
Okay.
shot. Most of them because of, I think there's a big quarrel behind it. But anyway, and mostly of these guns were illegal. Okay, um, and so, but I think when did you last recall that someone had a firearm or knife and defend themselves? Tools were used against the good people, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so with my job and my mission is what first is to teach civil awareness. Okay, that bad people are outside. Okay,
Mm.
and if
Yeah.
you disarm people, so how can you defend yourself? And I ask these questions in my seminars, especially when I do it with special forces, and you know how they are. If you have experience to teach these kind of people, they think they're good or the best. Um, okay, on a certain level of selecting people, yes, but who certifies your training? Okay, is it on international? Is it pressure tested? Okay, and have you really met bad guys who had special training? Because this is the mindset what I have. I don't train, against drug addicts or drunk people or
Yeah.
we train, or this is my mindset. We train against high level predators, highly trained predators.
Yeah.
This is what we do for living. Okay, so how can you defend against someone? That's why I
That's
come
true.
with this kind of story. Okay, so what would you do if your opponent is twice as good, twice as big, twice as fast as you? Okay, he's not coming alone, and they are armed. What are you going to do? And I ask this, because I had this experience, with this kind of people. What is your strategy behind it? And mostly, okay, we are carrying firearms. Okay, but
Hmm.
um, what you are going to do after a certain distance, you cannot respond that quick that you think that you're fast, you know. And I gave him a demo, just within a meter. Okay, what are you able to do? Of course, if you're watching the landscape of YouTube videos, the attackers are from 20 meters, 15 meters, 10 meters, 7
Yeah.
meters.
Yeah.
Okay, but highly trained predators, they let you really come close, you know, and then engage their attack. So, and this is what you have to be aware of, okay? And because mostly you can see it's a confrontation, okay? There's some bad
Yeah.
guy, I'm not waving around, but highly trained predators, they attack you from behind. So, how can you address it? So,
Mm.
okay, so that's why, just to make him think, okay, it's not to bash the ego or whatever, just literally, what are you going to do against a high level knife player, okay?
Mm.
So this is my mindset because, we are in a state-bladed community and have a lot of knives, you know, and this is what makes you think because a knife is much more cheaper to get than a pistol, okay, and whether you
Mm.
buy it because a kitchen knife is easier uh, um, um, to to buy than a gun. Okay.
Oh,
And yeah,
it's actually nice that you're basically managing to teach them in a way that you build it up from like personal safety awareness, and then have managing to like teach them how to use them with morals, I would say, and ethics in mind as well. So
exactly, exactly. This is very important. Um, if we go into teaching, okay, maybe this is where I open the word, and maybe the listeners will now listen more carefully. Um, what are the problems of a teacher, when they teach generally? Okay, you
mhm.
must have gone to school, but how do you transport an information, to a student's mind? Okay, the term the scientific term for it is called neuroplasticity. Okay, how
Okay.
do you train it? Okay, so I'm thinking one of the pioneers now opening up this kind of topic. Okay, so take your notes. Okay, um, the transportation, especially the communication skills. It's not about the style what you carry. It's about how you address a story to someone's head. Um,
Exactly.
also, the scientific term for it is it's a cognitive entropy. Okay,
Yep.
for the ones this maybe it's too high, I call it Teflon. Okay, the student's brain is made of Teflon. Okay, any information you throw at them, it doesn't attach. Okay, because it's so hard. Because I explained to that after have a spinal injury or brain injury, and the part is severe or damaged. What concerns of remembering how to walk. Okay, it takes a patient roughly about 18 months, okay, to
Hmm.
learn walking.
Yeah.
Okay, so our algorithms or how we set movement. That's why it's so hard to learn martial arts in general. Okay, because it's eye-hand coordination and movement, the rest will follow. Okay, also that's why it's like dancing. Okay, why don't people dance? Because they cannot follow rhythm, timing, and at the same time, they have to move. Okay,
Yeah.
and but I have a solution for that already, how you can address it. And but in the end, I break it down on 2 stages. Okay, when you open up your lesson. Okay, this is what I learned from this gentleman. I'm really thankful to be the student and friend. But I mix it all together in what makes them really effective. Okay, how to teach someone is first you have to create attention. Okay, attention, concentration, and focus. Okay, this is the base level what you need. Okay, um, what is the problem nowadays? We have access to social media. We have access
Yeah.
to any knowledge in the world. We can access any libraries and buy books from any online shop. Okay, but because of this big diversity, we don't really know what information we have to extract to memory and to install into your system. Okay, because it's always flowing, and you don't in your filter is not really how would say works in that way as a filter that the key information stay in your system. Okay, so that's why this is the base level. It's attention and focus. Okay, focus means you're not distracted by anything. Okay,
Mm.
so you have to be really concentrated. And the problem nowadays is, and this is come all with this example, and I think maybe you can relate to that. How many people or how many guys of you who are watching TV and at the same time surfing on your cell phone? Okay,
Multitasking.
that's the point. And then if you just take a measure for maybe 1 minute, how many of these informations what you pass by will really sit in your brain or in your awareness? I would say
Mm.
memory or this basket, okay, when you filter it out. You see, that's not much. Okay. But that's why we have to create this environment of attention and focus, okay, to install.
Yeah.
This is really hard. Okay, this we have a lot of experience. Okay, and of course trial and error to get this kind of information and conclusion. Um, the first is information. We need valid information. That's why I follow this gentleman who have a certain structure um, structure in the curriculum. Okay, what you can relate. Okay, this is very important, and at the same time to be instinct. Okay, and this is what some masters like Grant Tuhon guy is doing. He's training his people, without saying they exercise, okay, but he wants something from them, okay. This is a kind of instinctive training, okay,
Yep.
which is really which he doesn't really explain, but just demand from the students, you know, and um, and this way you have this golden handle between information and instinct, and okay, this is the base level what you have, but in the end you get a stimulus, and then you have to create a response, okay.
Yep.
And this kind of what I'm talking about is also will be done in my upcoming book. I'm still writing it now because I'm doing my research to make it much more better and efficient. Because what makes a person efficient? I explain it in that way. Imagine you have a new job, okay, and you have different processes you have to remember. Okay, so this is like in martial arts. You have to function like that. Okay, if you can see the situation, you don't assess it, you just address it at that time. See, and this is all the discussion comes, even in FMA discussion when they ask, what is pressure testing your techniques? Okay, if you just answer quite simply, um, either you take down the bad guy, okay, or you're taking down the good guy, okay, good guy in terms of sports, okay,
Yep.
because if you're like a competition, like in SEALs, that you do the highest course, there's competition if you do takedowns, and my teacher, my friend, my grandmaster from Malaysia, he's vice world champion, I think, and he's really good in takedowns. Okay, so this is his specialty, and that's why he won a lot of fights, in competition because of it. Um, it depends on the environment where you have to execute the techniques. And nowadays, what everyone is lacking, okay, is time. Okay,
Yeah.
how many people will really follow a proper formal training? Okay, I have just only a few people who can follow that. The rest
Mhm.
of it, they have because due of family duties, work duties, and other commitments, what they have to do. It's just only a certain time left to learn. So how do you address it certain of time? Okay, what you have and what you create that these people can learn. But that's why the sixth style, what I do is my own. It's just a reduction, I would say a cheating code, but not a replacement, for black belt, but at least I can transport a black belt mentality or install a black belt mentality really quickly. Okay,
Okay.
for basic black belt. Okay, but in the end, I transform it not from a formal training. I address it more like hunting. Okay,
All
so
right.
because in combat you hunt. Okay, it's not a competition. It's like a sports game, 10 on 10 or whatever. Okay, because you don't know the weapons, what they're carrying, and you have to address it in that manner. So, anyway, but the mentality, what I said is about hunting. Okay, hunting the mindset to be exact. Okay, but how can you break it? Of course, you can do a lot of this discussion because the response time is really big. Okay, if you have a question like how do I punch someone in the face? Okay, and okay, you have so many opinions to do so. Okay, but what if you put in your equation timing to it? Okay,
Mhm.
someone punch you in the face. Okay, of course you can open the book, page 52. Okay, this is what I learned. This is on my notes, and you get still punched in the face. Okay, so you have to think over. Okay, how practical in effect what you're teaching, or how is it? How can it be transported to a needs? As a civilian, as a woman, as a child, or as a professional, a bouncer, security, personal protection, law enforcement, military. It doesn't matter, but you have to study the environment before you address your curriculum to it. Okay, so that's why I think you will maybe you will agree with me. In fact, when you're learning styles, you're learning how to think.
Yeah.
Okay, um, how to think is to have a structured thinking. Okay, so that's why, of course, this is what Bruce Lee said. You have to empty your cup and then put something else. Okay, okay. I would prefer I think two models. What I learned. One is from Tuhan Radio Naldo, who asked me, okay, if you're drinking wine and you still have the taste of wine in your mouth, okay, you're still left of it, and you want to taste a new wine. So how can you know? How can you know this new wine tastes good or bad? Okay,
Yeah.
if people are
Yeah.
opinionated that way. And on the other hand, if the players, thinking of too high of their abilities, okay, and this is why I want to recall one of the quotes of Grandmaster Rene Thompson. Okay, a lot of people want to play the game like in an orchestra, in the band, but you don't know how to play the notes or your
Okay.
instrument. So how
Mm.
how can you go on a journey, where you can play giving a concert. See, that's the point. This is a general, observation what you can see through the landscape of any martial art. For the FMAs, it's general, okay, because um, everyone it's because there's no limit to express themselves, which is okay. But in times of violence, if someone attacks you, your family, um, try to negotiate with them, you know. If they're close in distance to you and they take what they want, and then you can see how effective any style what you had or any glorious things what you carry with your patches. Well, this is what I tell these people. No law book or no law can protect you from that, from happening to them. So what are you going to address this? This is only
Yeah.
an eye opening. Okay. I don't wish for anyone that they come in this kind of situation, but you can prevent some things. Okay. In
Yep. That's true.
education, that's why
Mhm.
why does the Philippines have the law 9850, the Arnis law. Why do they have it? Okay, is it a cultural thing, or does this government want that this citizens to learn how to defend themselves, starting from a child? Okay, so this is why I referred from the tribal structure of the Philippines, the extended family structure and thinking. Um, why are we doing this martial arts? First, it's not for competing, it's just for saving lives, to survive. This is what I tell my
Yes.
people. I don't teach them how to fight, just teach them how to survive. Because
Mm.
after you overcome the situation to survive an attack, then we can talk about it, how to control someone. And this is,
Yeah,
if you
that's true.
if you're learning weapons arts, this is really quite easily explained. If you're not in control in your weapon, how can you control your opponent? They're
Yep.
saying. So if a lot of people sure will relate to that firearms, but the only issues what you have is your trigger finger. So if you don't have a trigger discipline or whatever, this all more wrong. You're just only talking about one movement. So how is it a much more complex world of blades? Because a bullet is just linear; it's going straight. Okay,
Hmm.
but within 1 second, the the blade can you know can take any angle. Okay, now this is what you have to study. Of course, every system, every comes with the same conclusion. Why? Any martial arts? Why? Because the human body, is all the same. So, what for me is missing nowadays is not the innovation; it's just the preserving the art. So this is what my sixth style was. It's called Nusantara.
Yeah.
It's my life term for Ireland. I got this idea from a teacher. It's just to preserve art, okay, the way how people think and how they address, because um, this is in the end what makes art successful. Okay, if you can
Yeah.
use it. So it's like also I have it in my pocket. Okay, it's a pocket size on my cell phone. I have the complete Wikipedia on it. It's 83 gigabytes. Okay, because of course it is pandemic and maybe the internet will shut down. So how can you access any wisdom of this world? And this is it's a good encyclopedia at least. Also the current state where you can refer to information. And this is also what I want to create, with the styles what I do. So I have a really big collection. I think it's more than, I think 521 gigabytes what I have on video material, you know.
Wow.
So I know if everyone wants to follow into my footsteps, watch 521 gigabytes. You will see how long it will take you. And and after that, also practicing, understanding it, you dissecting it, putting it together, how much time. And my career comes really fast because I don't want to compare, but if you see colleagues, who are 50, 40 years in this business, are much more further than that. Why? Um, because I use my time differently. Okay, I'm much more focused. I don't watch TV. I'm just only doing my research and playing around, testing,
Yeah.
and develop at the same time. And on the other hand, I have a really good documentation about my styles, which is nowadays really important because um, this is what I've seen through the pandemic. A documentation of a student is highly important. Okay,
Mm.
and it must be applied in any country. Okay, at the same time, so you cannot do it in Japan like this, and then in South Africa like this. Okay, so
Yeah.
we have to create a system in the fact it was I call it a protocol. Okay, because we have a situation, and in the end, how do we address it? It's like an emergency, and surgery, something like, or first aid in many ways. Okay, so you have a protocol which you have to follow. Um, and before going into scientific, I wouldn't talk about nonsense, but information and discussion. What I said in the end, it's how you address a working process. Okay, in terms of violence, how you address it. It's not like, okay, excuse me, can I call my master or anyone? So I have a phone joker or whatever. I look up on the internet so I can have my answer. You have to answer right away because the response time is just only a split of a second. Okay, and
Mm.
what I'm specialized with this, what I said before, space and time. Okay, and this is what my teaching, I will call it, maybe makes it more special because um, people generally have an abstract perception of violence and distance. Okay, um,
That's
and if you
mm.
don't know what you're doing, okay, because people are too much, affected what the other people do. They're always concerned, what if the other man is doing that or this? Okay, all the what if things. Okay, okay. How can you respond to my attack? Okay, so and it's like, how can you break the human mind? How you can push something from an offense into defense? How do you do that? Okay, if you don't have never played that game, you will never understand. So you must,
Yeah.
even you come from the best masters. Um, so how can this mentally? The second, space. If you don't know in the work area you're working with, okay, um, so it's within 1 meter, okay, and depending on the weaponry, but in the end it's 1 meter what you have. How do you address that? Are you going to take down and you grapple and you do waiting for submission, to do so? Do that with a knife. Let's see how long it could take, you know. Um, and the other aspect is, and this is what I, push my people, to be more aware of the room, of the space they enter, and how they can manipulate it and how to start it from it, because all the angles here will comes from me and not from
Yeah.
behind, you know. See, and the second is, um, one of my requirements for my thinking, because nowadays or generally, people think if they got a black belt, they get some kind of magic power and they're invincible and it's when they can fight. Okay, so um, I want to break this kind of habit of thinking and I got the proof already. A yellow belt, what I can produce, can break a black belt in any system. Okay, because they do it armed. Okay, and they know how to address what I'm teaching them, which is really, I don't tell the public, only my students how to do so. Um, and this is the combative thinking in timing. Okay, no matter what you think, how fast can you relate to the next step, how we attack? Okay, and so how can you manipulate and dominate your opponent on your mind and his action? And in the end, you transport information into a behavioral modification. It's not based on information. Okay, you have to do like this and this. That's why people think too slow. Okay, and the outcome is then a habit. Okay, so the only way to address a violent action against you or your family or anything is it's called conditioned response. Any military expert will agree to that. Okay, because you go over and over the same, I would say, easy drill. Okay, because in terms of adrenaline, what's pushing out of your body, okay, your movements must be simplified, which I think is dangerous because some of the masters they say, okay, on the high pressure level, when your heart rate is above 160 beats per minute, you lose
About
your fine
175,
your
yes.
your motoric skills. Okay, so that's why your mindset already can control your body chemistry. Okay, so if you can control your breathing and your heartbeat, you're much more control of your weaponry and yourself. Okay, because I think everyone can also relate and agree to that. In that kind of situation, panic is the last what you want, and this is why people die.
Yeah.
Okay, because of two things, the overconfidence of the skill set, and underestimating the situation. So if your assessment skills are not that refined, um, I can tell you already, you don't have any chance to stand a violent act, And if you have never met or made
Mm.
contact with predators, how they think, how they arm themselves, and how
Yeah.
they work, um, how can you address any martial art of it? Okay, in theory, everything looks so good, looks so fine, and looks so classy and so shiny. Okay, but if just a brutal, simple attack and you cannot handle it, anything what you learned and time what you spent is useless. Okay,
Mm.
so this is only what I tell my people. And then, of course, the students, and you can see host mostly of this kind of talks when, especially new students come into your class. Um, they try to, of course, they want to share the experience, At the same time, with the experience, they call it the second expertise. Okay, okay, but of course, everyone collects their experiences, and that's what which is fine. Okay, but And I told him, you may one of the students, I met, he made was practicing martial arts, any martial arts, I don't name names because the martial arts are important, what kind of style. But in the end, I just asked him, you cannot address someone who's cutting you from this side, from this side, this
Mhm.
side, and from this side. So what have you done the last 12 years? Okay, and these are the simple tasks. Okay, this is what covers, in the most systems, on the yellow or white level base. Okay, if you cannot address this kind of easy task, so how can you address another violence of someone who's really trained, highly trained in that?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
training
yeah,
means practice. Okay, training in that matter, this is for me a term which is too loose. Okay, training must be guided, okay, must be repeatable and measurable. Okay, it's like
yeah,
success. Everyone talks about
yeah.
success. What is success? Okay, and what time did you create it? Okay,
Mm.
so everyone tries to be successful, a businessman and so on, but lacking of all the skills, what they need to be a businessman. Okay,
Yeah,
um, this is the world we live in, because of course, on the one side, you try to be the superhero, or a super teacher, untouchable, invincible, whatever, and the second one is the super highly Bill Gates businessman or whatever, so the next entrepreneur or social, what are influencer, this is the term I love, influencer. What do you influence? Okay, of course, if you touch a little bit hard, ooh, I'm really touched. Okay, but I'm not bothered. Okay, so
okay.
so yeah.
Yeah. Right. Before we carry on, I just would like to say hello to Felix Reyes de la Cruz from Texas and Alvin Albano from California. We're
Hi.
basically hoping to have like more UK and Europe audience, but we're getting more audience
Wow.
still from the States.
I
I
think
hope
my
you
my,
guys
my students are watching.
are enjoying your celebration, your 4th of July celebration. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. This is uh, what is intriguing for me. Why Guro X?
Guru X. Yeah, my nickname. Most of people call me Lex. Okay.
Okay.
Lex already. And Guru, of course, I got the title Guru, the Guru Alex.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And X, of course, because of my what I really like is the Glock, because we're in Austria. Okay, Glocks. Okay, Glock 19X. X
Wow.
stands,
Okay.
stands there for crossover. Okay, if you know the pistol, because why I like it so much, because it's a the barrel is a Glock 19 and the handle is a Glock 17, so you have the capacity of it, and
Okay.
it's a crossbreed which coexist at the same time. So that's why I think I'm a good example for this crossover. Um, it's not that I'm mixing my styles; I keep them all pure. Okay, this is what's really important. Also, instruction from my masters. Okay, to keep all of the styles pure. Okay, of course, when I teach, I can always relate to certain memories. Okay, this is what Tuhon Ray said, or this is what Tuhon Rommel said, or this is what Guru Abon says, or this is what Mema Sune says, or this is what my Atsiguazi are saying. Okay, um, because to every situation, of course, we have done. If we have come from five masters, we have five different opinions. Okay,
Mhm.
um, but in the end, if any of it was successful, to defend yourself, everything is fine. Okay. And of course, if you're that kind of level, you are some kind of a perfectionist. Okay.
Yeah.
And what I wrote and what I'm writing are algorithms. Okay. Which is a high level of flowing. Okay. At that point, what we have, at that moment, what we have now, we're rehearsing about 188 maneuvers in a row. Okay. It is
That's a lot.
from sticks to blades to empty hands, of course, because this is where you can prove me how smart you really are. Okay,
Yeah.
because any mistakes of it, okay, you will be kicked out of your flow and you have to start from all over again. Okay, and it's really a high level what I'm doing, and this is, um, you know, the martial art what I'm addressing or teaching is according the opponent you expect. Okay, it's not like the super villain, what you see on movies, will show up because um, the most violent, what you can see generally, I mean, I can talk in Europe, is domestic violence. Okay, which is a big problem. It's not on the streets, that we don't have here gangs or whatever. So we live probably in a safe environment here, so we don't have this kind of situation. Um, um, where you have this, professional violence. Okay,
Yeah.
because mostly we have here only just random violent attacks because it was triggered by something. In the end, when you learn about violence, that the people have to use it for some reason against some people, why they get crazy in the end because they hurt people, and because hurt
Yep.
people
Yeah.
hurt other people. Okay,
Yeah.
this is point, and that is. I don't want to be compassionate. Of course, if you do a long time martial arts and it's a case study. Um, for most people think, why are doing these people, on planet Earth, attacking each other? Because it's the human being. The human being is destroying planet Earth. They don't treat each other well. They're not kind enough. Okay, that's the problem. It's not the
Yeah.
it's not the guns or knives, it's not the alcohol, because people cannot have no discipline. That's the point.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why I'm really strict to those people. You don't compare yourself with me if you don't know how to spell discipline. Okay. Discipline is, this is my living room. What I told you before, discipline, is when you leave your comfort zone. Of course, if you're behind a desk and whatever and talk shit, sorry, those nonsense, on the internet or whatever, causing any friction, why should we be bothered? You know, by with that, let's go physical and test it out, because this is how it was done and it will be done the next generations or, because this is the human mankind. And this is what ask people. We live in a world, we have access to knowledge, and still people are suffering from hunger, okay? A lacking of information. They don't have no water,
Mm.
no food, okay? And and how can this is in fact a main problem. So that's why our society and then what I created, the federation, um, our motto, this is what we are, I think, famous already. Um, in the end, it's one family, one love, one tribe.
Yeah.
Um, I express it, we are one family, united as sharing one love, united as one tribe. Okay, so this is where it comes to one family, one love, one tribe in short. Um, and our mission as a teacher, not only to show the people love and compassion, because I think, at least in my experience of my students, everyone had a history before. Why do you want to learn? This is I handpick my students in one school. You know, we go at that level. What we are talking about is why do you join my class? Why? Because it's earned. Um, and seldom I saw someone here because it's a cultural thing I heard from the Philippines or so. No, because it's they want to learn weapons. Be honest, okay? It's
Yes.
it's fine because of course they have a violent history to whatever experiences, and they want to address it. That this happens never again. Okay. Um, and this is for me the pure Filipino. I'm thinking because Filipinos basically are known for their hospitality. This is what we are. But we must not forget people can be also really aggressive as a invasive power of tribes. Okay, it mustn't be Filipinos, but any other societies of people. They try to invade you for some reason. Okay, and to exploit you. That's the point. And
Mm.
this is my mindset because we are all mostly of my students, are also fathers, their families,
Yeah.
and this is also my mission, to teach children. This is also what is um, part of my job to teach also children, how to defend themselves and how to address
Mhm.
violence. Um, I had one experience, with one special kid. Um, he's a big tall guy in the gym, and because he was so tall, he was 10 years old, but he looked like a 18 years old guy. 18 years old. This and the adults, treated him also like that,
Yeah.
and he was always naughty, also naughty to everyone. Okay, but he wanted to take my class, and one day, he was annoying these people, and I showed him a lesson. If you want to continue your studies, you have to apologize to everyone and shake hands and look them in the eye, okay, and say sorry. Okay, I said what? Yes. Otherwise, I will kick you now from my class, and I will never teach you ever again. Before, if you're
Yeah.
afraid, I will grab your hand. Come, I go
Mm.
with you, and with what we did, and we did so. Okay, so he
Yeah.
said sorry to everyone, and then late in the evening, he texted me. Um, this was one most opening moments what I had in my whole life. You know
Mm.
what he said because
Discipline
he's
comes
sorry.
first.
Yes, so
Mm.
this is what really matters. Okay, and
Hey, it
also
does. It
what
does. It does.
you know.
I used to teach kids in Xavier School in the Philippines before I became a UP professor. So, I mean, we only have about 1 hour for PE, and normally you already have like 10 minutes or 5 minutes for them to change clothes, and then 5 minutes to go to the to the ground. So I have to make sure that they're always orderly, and I have to make sure that whenever they change their clothes, they have folded their school
Wow.
clothes properly at a particular place in
Yeah.
on their table, because even if one of them don't do it properly, the whole class will basically suffer from it. But it's really important. You need to set the tone for
Oh,
them. Once they learn
exactly.
it, it's easier for you to be able to like to manage them, to control them. So but it would be, it's crucial. It might be difficult at the beginning, but it is very crucial. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know why it's popped out now because on Christmas parties, I joined the adults and the kids together. Okay, I went
Okay.
early the kids because on an earlier time, um, and they have to prepare. Okay, like spreading the bread and so on. And I tell them already if any adults come, you shake hands. You know, you take the coat and you hang it. Okay,
Yep.
they do. You know, and at that time it was also the same kid, you know, he was doing, Alex, do you want this and this? And then one of my students says, hey, so why don't you ask me if I also want something? And then he was just so cool. Are you a master? You know? So, okay, at that time I was still yellow belt. It's so cool. Um, yeah, but this kind of experiences. And what I've seen
Yeah.
on this comment of our brother Alvin Albano, violence comes from unexpected places. Exactly. So that's why um, how to special forces enter, you know, the battlefield. You know, it's not like Braveheart. Maybe hopefully you know the movie Braveheart with Mel
Mm,
Gibson. You know,
mm.
these two big hills and then open ground and everywhere flashes. You know, this is not the environment where people, you know, if you're talking about special forces, but on a civilian perspective, okay, from an unexpected place, that's why we avoid this kind of places. That's why what do they do? Intelligence front, right? So that's why so we call it pioneers. So that's why you have to collect your recon, right? Before you address violence. So this is how we do. No
Yep.
one goes there and opens the
You
door.
need, yeah.
Who's there? And then, oh, sorry, wrong door. You know, excuse me. You know, this is not happening. and and it's also like in terms of predators. So if I come with the Nile in Egypt, okay, there are hippos in there. Okay, the predators. It's like, okay, like a human being is also, you cannot enter or cross the river and say, excuse me, don't eat me because I'm a nice guy or a nice person.
Yeah.
Don't eat
No.
me. Yeah. Uh, so that's the point. So it is not, this is what I think, condition of how is safety or security created only by highly trained people.
That's
Okay.
true. Yep.
Because um, we don't know when it happens. Okay. But we have to, that's why we prepare all the time. That's why we have to practice every day to that kind of
Always be
situation
ready. Yes.
to be ready. It's not like the mindset, okay, what's folklore, whether, okay, like a warrior, okay, that's it. I understand it. But in the end is, okay, when it comes to situation, how do you address it? And they have to be really quick response time. One of my master students, one day we went for a journey to Croatia, okay. He was attacked by a knife, okay. Before the class started, you know, he shook my hand and I said, Alex, thank you for saving my life. What
Mm-hmm.
happened? Okay. Um, it was about the subject of, you know, he's a dog owner, okay, and he has another dog owner, you know, to put away the dog poo, okay, on the street, and because of that, you know, it was an Austrian, okay, it was not a refugee or whatever, you know, he
Mm-hmm.
wanted to draw a folding knife, okay, he saw it, okay, just because it was before training, he had his training belt on it, which is aluminum trainer, okay, so he did what what he was training. Okay, he just draw the knife. He didn't stab him, but he just like a stabbing movement. Okay, just to knock out the knife of the opponent's hand.
Yeah.
Okay, um, it happened so quickly. He didn't realize it. And then after that, after maybe 2 minutes, he told me he started shaking. Okay, because yes, because this is where the adrenaline came from. That's why you have to control your body and you have to assess the
Mhm.
situation. Um, that's why the violence what you encounter. So there are two different ways. Either you are the victim, okay, what I don't train, okay, and how to spot, okay, a predator because they have a certain behavior how to select you, okay. Either
Yes.
it's
Yes,
a
they
one
do.
man or a two-man show or whatever. They work in teams, okay. You have to read the signals. That's why this is
Yes.
really
Yep.
difficult. This is what I and encourage every of my students and maybe you, the audience as well. If you haven't do so, or more aware of it. You just go to the shopping mall, not shopping, okay, just watching people, okay,
Window
just to
shopping.
learn this cluster of behavior, okay, just to select people, okay, are they good or bad? Okay, this is how I do it. Are they good or bad? Are they armed or unarmed? Okay,
Mm.
and this is the game. That's also what I teach to anyone, and then slowly, one of my oldest students is 79 years old, a small lady, okay, but she can beat, really tall guys. Um, and then we start, softly, because if you go into self-defense, no one wants to learn about knives. So that's why I make a workaround. I show with a scarf or with a ball pen, okay, which anyone has, not with a pepper spray, with a ball pen to defend themselves, okay. So that's why they practice already, especially if you see all the guys tactical or whatever. Hey, you live mostly in a hot environment. You're in a t-shirt, short, or whatever. Please come to Europe. You will see it sometimes it gets a little bit colder. Okay, you don't have this luxury. You have all, all the tactical vests or whatever. So that's why we practice. Just randomly, okay, in your pockets. Okay, take out your ball pen and then put it in. Just assess the situation. Okay, you have already also part of a church security detail as well. It's also how I teach them. Okay,
Yeah.
because we're not arresting people. We just only put away the bad guys, outside and keep the area safe and the people, you know. And yeah,
Okay.
this is the environment I'm living in.
Yeah. So, do you manage to, or how do you manage to transfer or adapt weapon technology for techniques or training? So,
Um,
civilian or LEO, military, doesn't matter.
exactly. This what I said before. The rules of engagement. It should be all not only following the morals but also the laws. Or this
Yeah.
is what I. It is quite too open for the public when you watch through the landscape of YouTube. People show how to kill. Okay, so that's why you don't find a lot of video, especially instructions. You never find instructional videos of me, since I do so. Although a lot of people do it because it's so popular, to make it popular, to boost the revenues or whatever, or use fear, okay, to create business. I think this is not a good
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
concept to do so. Um, but in the end, it depends. I always start with the biggest fear of a student. What is the biggest fear of encountering violence to you? And then talk about it. And I'll show you how to address it. Okay. And techniques, weapons, it depends on the situation. Of course, here in Austria, we can dress for the party. Okay. Properly, more properly, I would call it. Okay. But I don't support it in that kind of manner. Okay. Because you will end in jail. Okay. Um, if we have to take someone down, okay, we have all to face the consequences. So that's why in FCS, okay, it's not only we are Filipino cooking system, okay.
Filipino cooking system. That's new.
Oh, okay, we love food, man.
Well, who
Someone very
doesn't?
knows it. We
Who
always
doesn't?
everyone.
Food is always part of training, man.
Of course. um, FCs, the two FCs, what I call it. Okay, it is the freedom of choice. What I teach already the children, full consequence. This was the lesson also. What I'm trying to the students. Everyone is free to choose. Like I tell my kids, it's why I'm so popular because I'm not the one who's pushing them. Hey, come to my training. It's the other way around. I try to get rid of them. Okay, but they keep coming back. Okay, that's the point. Um, but I tell them you're free to come here. I don't want that you're here. I'm set them on my mat or where we train, because someone is telling you. You are free to decide to do so. If you want to
Yeah.
do your homework, you're also free to do so. Okay.
Mm.
And still, I mean, I don't post it publicly because they're minors. Okay, but it's so cute.
Yeah,
You know,
of
sometimes
course.
they do choreography for me. Alex, this is what we do for you. You know. On the other hand, I got the. His name is also Alex, so I love it. I still have it somewhere. I got the pirate ring. You know, it's just now part of the gang. So it's so cool. Um,
You're part of the gang now.
yeah, yeah. But anyway, referring to your question about technique and weapons. Um, I show how to survive. That's the point. That you come safe and sound, and mostly minor injuries. You know,
Yeah.
um, what we don't look for knife fight. So what you can see, and you can study it also through the YouTube. You can, so if you're a knife fighter, see most of them get cut. Okay. In fact, I show how to attack. Okay, in
Hmm.
fact, to counterattack. Okay, um, the counterattack is also based on timing. If your timing is wrong, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you will see no technique will work. You can make up
Mm.
for the best. Refer on the long term, what I said before. From the have a picture with a grandmaster or whatever, or a T-shirt. This will not prevent something bad happens because the response time is too short. Okay, you will not open the book of your life, and explain to your opponent what you did before, and then say, "Okay, I'm so sorry. I will not attack you." Okay, this will not happen. So you give her something to
Yeah.
eat. They must be hungry. So that's why I said so like a switch. Okay, where they generate this focus. Okay, this focus awareness. Okay, because this is in fact what I explained what is fighting all about. And special forces, of course, and anyone, if you have been through the training or whatever, if you understand what they're doing, we can relate to that. Fighting is at that point when you're pushing to the limits. It's not when you're feeling healthy and it's good and
Mm. Yeah.
prepared for it. Okay,
Mhm.
predators will attack you when you're weak. Okay,
Yep.
so if you drink, if you're tired, if
Yep.
that's why you can see people don't talk about. It. That's why people get robbed. So you're highly trained martial artist, superhero, ninja, whatever. Be honest, but people don't will not talk about it because it's embarrassing. Okay, which is okay, but this is what makes it that human. Okay, no one is a
Mm.
machine. Also, no grandmaster. I tell you, I pay all respect to the teachers or whatever, but none of us is stab or bulletproof. Okay, remember that.
Yes, that's true. Yep. Exactly.
So, of course, you cannot generate this kind of, like a religious power. I'm invincible or whatever. But, it's not
No,
true.
no,
Everyone
no,
bleeds.
no.
Like in
Nobody's in.
Predator, in the movie, if it bleeds, he can be killed.
Yep.
So that's the mentality.
Yep.
So of course we respect, and especially when we share knowledge. And um, this is what I call myself. I'm more the caretaker of the systems what I carry. I'm so thankful to be selected. You don't know how it is, so because from a no name,
Of
and then you
course.
get hey, one of the really highest influential guys. If you know my background history, I'm representing the biggest and the largest FMA communities. Okay, I'm the direct student. I'm not hence someone. I'm direct under them, and with all my heart, they know we're warriors and we are prepared for war.
Yeah.
It's not about pushing egos or so, but it's just someone tries to invade, whatever. Let's test it out because you think you go, but we don't do so because this is the unfortunately the Western thinking of competition. Okay, you have to compete, you have
Mhm.
to be successful,
Yes,
whatever.
too
That's why my
competitive.
my main message to the world is we don't need more successful people, we need more loving people. Okay, make more friends. I think, and for me, that's why island a bridge because you have to enter an island maybe through a bridge, and that's why one family was because no matter where you've come from, hey,
Mm.
we share the same interest, and this so the people who know me and my crew, it's a big diversity. In the end, my martial art or my person, connects these people, which in fact, if they meet on the streets, they wouldn't look to each other because so different and, they're so biased. Um, this I want to open up with the martial because I think
Yeah.
it's better to have more friends than enemies, okay?
Oh,
But we're
that's
not
yeah,
afraid of it,
that's true.
you know?
That's true. That's very true.
You know?
Actually, it's one of the things that I would say. drew me to your ethos in teaching martial arts, that one tribe, one family. Yeah, thing. That is just spot on. So now we're in that. What is the mission of the FMA Federation of Austria?
I express it in that manner that we try to preserve the highest available arts um, on planet Earth, I would call it. But at least at the FMA Federation, I would call it, to shorten it up, you cannot learn every martial art or from every teacher what I want to, because this is a lifetime journey. At least the Southeast Asian part, which is why I call my sixth style, but Nusantara, because it's a reference, of that area. Because in effect, martial arts are carried out by people, and these teachers they have to live somewhere. Okay, and this is where you can follow. Um, and if you haven't traveled the world that much, how many people can really tell you if this kind of technique works in Brazil or it has the same impact in US or in Africa or something in Australia, New Zealand? Then you will, if you got to this point, then I know you have traveled a lot because you don't get this information, if you haven't speak or have get touching with a lot of people. Okay,
Yeah,
and of course everyone is looking for a universal um, response to violence, which is to some extent true. But the continents, for instance, if you don't have a mechanism of defense or offense to it, so it's the point. So it's based on region. Okay, that's what kind of weapons do they use, and how do they address it? So that's why, for instance, if you travel to New York City, okay, you get robbed. Okay, that's why. What do they do? Okay, they carry two wallets, one with just a minor bills and old credit cards,
yeah,
and the other one is safe because no one is checking both, pockets. But see, everyone everyone develops some tactics, and it depends on the environment you want to defend yourself. So you have to be, not innovative, but you have to understand the mechanism how people try to hurt you. And I think where you live, or where you try to teach martial arts should be firstly, covered by these topics, okay, before you go international, because that's why people got hired to other people, because of course every nation has their army or the
mhm,
systems or mechanisms of law enforcement military to address this kind of acts. So that's why they have similarities, of course. Um, but what makes it special, what makes it worthwhile to train? Okay, so because before we can speak of information, what would people do is, in the end, it's about motivation. If you're not motivated to practice, okay, how good will you be your response? Be honest.
yeah,
Okay?
yeah. That's
If
true.
and this is also Hello World. This is the opening part. Okay, it may be boring rehearsing all over the same time because we have to transport information, from the central nervous system,
Mm.
into muscle memory, into the spinal cord. Okay, so your access of information is different, to respond to information. Okay, to intellectual information. Okay, that's why everyone, if you see in a discussion, you can see clearly people because they are thinking. Okay, it's not the same way if you have to respond to something quickly, okay, because there's no time for thinking. And that's the reason why my people or what I'm doing or what I've created is so powerful because we system overload, our opponent, okay? And if you get in too much information, so what is in the correct information, you accept and what you can do for defense because we turn over your offense into a defense, okay?
Mm.
And we push you to
Yes.
make a mistake. And this is what I study really hard. That's why I can open up anyone because my timing is so special, okay? Because Eric talks about timing, okay? Okay, everyone can also talk because I'm a fashionista about um, or it's called horology. Okay, this is the science, of watch timekeeping. Okay, I'm a big fan of it. Okay, so of course you can buy a $5 watch or you can have more expensive timepieces. But all in all, they'll tell the same time. And if you have a proper education, you must not spend a big amount of money, to have a good timepiece, which accept the same mechanism of a relay, maybe it is 100 times more expensive, but you have a highly good quality and original. Okay, so because this is, the science is all about, if there's a history of a watch and so on, you know, and the forums, and it's also like having style, because I define it that way. Everyone can buy fashion, okay? Everyone can buy fashion, but you cannot buy style. Okay, this is what
Yeah,
in
that's
UK
true.
it's really nice.
Yeah.
If we have a
You,
tailored suit,
mm,
okay, this is what
you
I'm
can
talking
buy
about.
swag.
Yeah, yeah, that's the point. Okay, because what is the difference? It's the attitude, and that's why we will face most of the conflict, especially in the martial arts, which is really sad to see. Okay,
Mm,
in fact, it's an attitude problem. Okay,
mm,
everyone has. Okay, they don't admit it because they're too proud. Okay,
yeah,
that's it.
yeah,
That's what it is. Be human, man. Okay, everyone can make mistakes. It's okay. This is what I teach kind of mentality and culture to my students. It's okay to make mistakes. At least you address it and you correct it. Okay, if you
yeah,
do it and over again, then just so stupid. I'm sorry. So you know, um, um, I try to push. We have to maximize strengths. And minimize weaknesses in every part of our life. Okay, and this is
yep, that's true.
especially the this is called the foundation. Our build. What I did is just a three simple, words. Just patience. You know, it's gratitude. You know, what I teach them, and respect. Okay, respect and others that the diversity of opinions it may okay, but you will see if you push any opinion to some level, um, everyone has their limits. Okay,
Yeah,
to respond to something. So in
yeah,
the end, it's a comparison of the quality, of the answer, right? So the behavior to be successful is what I can also endorse to other people. So it's because you have to be with successful people. It's that simple. Okay, if your environment is not that, and you will be good or the best or elite into something, you cannot do that if you start low level. You have to look for, okay, who's on the market, who's the hardest, okay, what I can learn, what I can, because we have to learn how to think, how to eat, how to work, how to the daily duties and chores, and like Google Tom, hopefully it's okay if I meant because the daily chores, but also Google Tom does, you know, this is exactly what makes us, human. It's not we are machines
that's true.
so hey, he's cooking, he's ironing, so hey, taking care also the family because this is what matters most, and how people will remember us and what we teach us to the next generation. It's not like to be popular,
Yeah,
you know, and fancy and famous. I do that because I love my family, and I love my tribe, I love my students, and I love everyone who's in it. And this I want to share to the world, and this is what the world needs most. It's not, of course, we must be aware there are bad people, and that's it. And
yeah,
compared to the time on planet Earth, we are living. How the time, what we have to spend with these bad guys. How large is this time scale? It's really short. So let's try enjoy life. Let's share together. I think this is
exactly.
um, what martial arts is try this kind of bridge. Okay, because I don't think I'm a citizen of Austria. I'm a citizen of the world, you know, because I think this is it can be still explored. Okay, we can watch YouTube and whatever. It's not the same if you can really travel and plan anything. Okay, because this is in fact also the difference between tactics and strategy. People have a lot of tactics, but I hardly see strategy behind it. That's the point I was
Yeah,
saying, right? Okay,
yep, yeah,
everyone, they
exactly,
can buy
exactly,
tactics, um, but
exactly.
the strategy in fact sucks because you don't know how to use it. It's like if you buy a violin like a Stradivari, okay, very famous, you know, a violin maker, they're very expensive also violins. Okay, maybe you can buy it, but if you don't know how to play it, then it's You can be a collector, okay, it is.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, these tools what we have, especially martial arts, must be used. But the weapon for myself and techniques, what I said before, it's not the
Mm.
tool itself, it's the mindset. Okay, the
Yeah.
mindset must be sharp.
Yeah.
Okay, because without the sharp mindset, you cannot create a sharp knife. Okay,
Yeah.
or handle a
Yeah.
sharp knife. Right? But that's why
Yeah.
I relate a lot to the blade because the blade speaks the truth. You know, the blade speaks about the amount of your training, and I know if you don't work with live blades, you're pretty scared of it. You know why? Because you're always in the comfort zone. In the comfort zone is
Yeah. Yeah.
women
Yeah. Yeah.
trainers, and parliament trainers, and
Yeah.
then so whatever. But as soon as I put them, what I do in my training, I put them a real blade in the night, in their hands. Okay, now let's practice. Then suddenly, okay, you got the respect. That's the point. Okay, of course, if you follow the bloodline, and I think he has a good story about it. Because this was on the inspirational videos, when he was in the 70s or so, when he said, um, "You must not respect me, but you respect my blade." Okay? Yes, okay,
Yes.
that's the truth because the blade is the
Yes.
extension of your art.
Yes. I've
Not,
heard that a few times in Tondo. I've heard that a
you
few
know,
times in Tondo.
yeah, if the audience don't know what Tondo is, it's an area in Manila,
Yeah.
um, but I think we don't recommend that you visit there at night. Okay, so please
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
Okay.
is pretty simple. It is pretty simple. Attacks are pretty simple and brutal, and you don't come with the doctor's mind. Okay, how to address it into
Yeah, that's true.
microscopic
Mm.
detail. Or you just do it or do it. Or you don't. Okay, that's the point. Okay, and you cannot target around it, and also the work ethics behind it. Okay,
Yeah, that's very
how I
important.
how I teach is training is actually fun. Okay, although it's a serious matter, but the training part is fun. Okay, and of course you can put this ethos behind that as a warrior, to be a gentleman, to be a leader of a society, to taking care of your family, of your
Yeah.
of social activities, what you're doing. Okay,
Yeah.
it's just spreading this love and care. And this is why I want to this one family, one love, one tribe. Although I don't have a splitted personality, so I can imitate my masters, but I sometimes do that, you know. Because if you study martial arts and arts, okay, arts means you can copy someone, okay. So like this, okay, just only by the guarding hand, okay. Most people will then recognize who they are, okay. If I go like from this position, only the guarding hand. If you see the guarding hand from this position, most people may know reference. This is a reference for Bikini, okay. If you do it like more like this, okay, then it's more Garimot, okay. If you're going like this is more Ray Leonardo, okay. And foremost, okay, of the posture you can see already. If you're going like this, okay, then you can see this is from Grand GM Rene, okay, how he moves, okay. See, because you have to have a profound understanding not only of the people behind it, of the body mechanics.
Yes, of course. Yes.
And for me, I'm so blessed to study from these people because um, everyone has a certain timing. Okay, it's not about the movement, but because everyone does the same movement in the end. Okay,
Mm.
but
Mm.
everyone creates a certain timing. Okay, but creates a rhythm. Okay, the rhythm. Okay, you can see the pauses. Of the. This is where how you enter and how do you create it. This is so nice to see when you can see the rhythm um, and martial arts because this
Yeah.
interconnect really hard your music and our
Yeah.
martial arts because
Yeah.
also
As we say, the timing renders the space,
oh
and the space renders the opportunity.
yeah, yeah. And what I'm saying also about timing is if you want to strive about mastery, okay, you cannot skip the clock of time.
Mm.
Okay.
That's true. Yeah.
So I wish everyone, of course, their career in the martial arts and what they're doing, and then so of course I push them and I wish them all the luck and I congratulate them. Um, and fact is, what I'm saying is, mastering an art is mastering life. And what is more important to you? Okay, I think we always have to be aware also of our reality because also in martial arts, we can be easily driven, to mindset. um, which is not relevant to reality, right?
Mm.
So I don't want to be the bad guy and tell you, okay, this is the reality. This is tell people just to think, okay, how to think over, okay, and that we're human and we make mistakes and how we correct it. And in the end, it's how we treat each other. That's the point. This is
Yeah.
how self-esteem works. How we treat each other. If you're armed, if you got guns and ask people, hey, how are you guys? How are you? And I say, hey, I'm fine, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, see, this is how you enter a party. Okay, you don't go scared. That's
Yeah,
why. That's why.
exactly.
That's why my motto of my
Own it.
T-shirt. Please hold on. I will just take it. So this uh, I didn't prepare, but yeah, on a T-shirt. Okay, so that's why we have here. Hopefully, you can read this
Live powerful.
and
We do bad things to bad people. That's a
exactly.
nice.
Um,
Yeah,
basically,
I like that shirt, man. I like that
um,
shirt.
to all of this. I will send you one. Tell me then, okay, your address. Um, Mostly, my t-shirts are sold out. Okay.
I
Um,
bet.
not be, although it sounds martial. The world we are living and the stories what we can tell as a kid. Okay, and that's why I refer to this motto: we do bad things to bad people. Is we live in a world, and that's why we are scared. That the good people must be scared for the bad guys. You know,
Mm,
um,
mm,
you have to
mm.
turn it over. Okay, that's why we do bad things to bad people. This requires discipline because if
Yeah.
you're if you're loving people, you don't want to hurt other people.
Yes, of
But
course.
if you have but if you have to make this decision, okay, to protect you, then you have to do bad things. That's the point.
Mm,
Okay? You're not proud of
yeah.
it because in a
Yeah.
survival situation, you will do things you are not proud of it. Okay,
Mm.
and if it's okay, you can throw it away. That's why you survive. Okay, but in the end, um, it's also what I teach. Have two girls. Okay, that the
Yeah.
good people must not fear the bad. Only good, highly trained people can stop bad people from doing bad things. Okay, this is the mentality,
Yes.
what we have, and the
Yeah.
purpose why we do that. Of course, you can be a patriot and say, "I do it for my country" and whatever. Okay, yeah, okay, do so. Okay, um, but in the end, if you care about people, this is why you sacrifice your life.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
and we're not ashamed of it, and yeah. So this is what, of course, in the beginning, of course, it looks tough. Okay, to do bad things to bad people. Like I know people talk about it and what it means, and then I turn around and say, "Are you one of the bad people?" No. So okay.
It's like terms and conditions applies.
Yes, yes, exactly. But this is also the mindset how we train. So if you met a bad guy, how can you address
Yeah.
it? If you, of course, do it first with communication. Violence is the last thing what we want to address and to
That's
put
very
on.
true.
Okay,
That's
so I
very
think
true.
this is where you can pressure test your skill set. Okay, not
Mm.
applying these techniques, being because everything has consequences. What I especially this guy, he was always looking for trouble, but he was robbed one day. Okay, and what I told him not to respond in a violent way, which he did. Okay,
Mhm.
and and I told him, he has to take note of everyone to remember this guy. And he did, so he reported to police. He doesn't even get his money back, and he gained, a penalty. So he also got more money to it. That's a smart move. Yeah, see, this is what you learn. Um, Another guy, one of my junior students from the kids, he's training at the Shaolin Temple. Okay, since he was 8 years old, you know. But in the end, if it comes to a real conflict, he comes to me and asks me of advice. And of course, kids have knives. Okay, whatever,
Mhm.
where did they get from? Okay, but the people, and he realized that that's why awareness training, and he saw it. And that's why he crossed the street. And these people, they tried, these kids, they tried to scare him. Okay, but he was not, he was keeping cool, crossing the street, and the game was over. You know, and that's the point. See, this is what I mean: how to survive, because um, you have to face in the end and the legal consequences. You will go to
Yeah.
court. This
Exactly.
costs you
Exactly.
money. Fine. Okay. So
Exactly.
that's why this is how I address the children. It's better to to buy a new PlayStation for that. Okay. And no one gets on your nerves. You can play with it instead of making everyone unhappy. You know. And
Exactly.
this kind of work ethics, is also to be disciplined. Okay. Not to address this kind of I won't call it evil thinking, but you have to be in controlling yourself of your mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Situation, because if it goes ahead, this was normally really quick ends or escalates. What are you going to do? I'm sorry, that's too late. You know,
It's too late.
um,
Yes.
I'm too late. So we have to be in advance. That's why flowing is very important. Flowing is a state of mind where your techniques are advanced already. Although you're doing one technique, you're already on the next section. Okay. Um, and this is then how I can see. Of course, I when I teach, it's like a poet that I have to know by heart. How do you do that? Okay. How do you plant a memory? Okay. I
Yeah.
do this with a story. Okay. And what makes my students exceptional because they're good listeners. Okay. Or I make them good listeners. Okay. And I make them take notes so that everyone is standardized. Okay. So you can see with the grandmasters, and they come maybe from one grandmaster, and you can see why is this a variation between of the students, okay, master students. Why is that? Okay, because the master didn't care the documentation that they have the same information, or he did it on purpose, or he didn't know better because it's also a difference on what time you will meet a master. Okay, so all the information cannot be revised that way. This is the actual state. What he said now. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't ask. Okay. So in the end, to be also successful, more wiser is why don't you talk, to all the I want to be offend old people, okay, to all the masters, to the wise, experienced masters, okay. So this is why not learn from people who made mistakes already and don't make what they did, and look, people don't ask for it because they're too fascinated or too distracted from anything, okay. Just
Mm.
focus on what you want to not only to design but what you want to achieve, a mission.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's true.
Only having a curriculum, I would say this is not enough. Okay, what should
Mm.
people follow? That's why as how I prepare my future teachers or masters, I ask them two questions, then you're ready for it. That's really simple. Okay, this also want to share with the world how to prepare themselves if they plan to open a school and in that manner. Okay,
Mm.
is
Nice.
um, first is um, why should people come to you? Okay. If you cannot answer this questions immediately, you will not succeed. I tell you. But this only makes you think that you are prepared for it because the 5 P's, proper preparation, prevents poor performance. Okay. And the second is after that, if they enter the room, why should people pay you for that? Okay.
Yeah.
So of course, people um, wants to be right in the middle to be an outstanding teacher and also
Yes.
businessman at the same time. But
Mm.
both of them needs to be addressed in practice. So the the secret or the solution to be in fact why I came across and could skip time. Okay, I didn't really skip time. I just addressed my time differently. Okay, more intentionally. So if you follow a formal training of a school, and then after that you can go to the world and teach. Okay, that's why it takes you 20 years. Okay, 30 years, 40 years, or longer. You may succeed, or most did not. Okay, and what I endorse to people already, of course, you have to be courageous. Okay, um, I was a student, but I told you before. Maybe you have listened to the speaker. I was a yellow belt. A yellow belt, a representative, okay, and there were players who already have black belts, okay. Um, but what I'm trying to say is, be a student and a teacher at the same time, okay.
Yeah.
A black belt, if you want to answer it in a philosophical way, what is a black belt, okay? The black belt is the status where my journey starts, okay. This is the classical answer, okay, which is true. Why?
Exactly. Exactly.
Why? because here you have to apply what you learned, right? So for
Yeah.
me, that's really do it really a simplified explanation. If you're following a curriculum, a black belt is just only learning the alphabet. This doesn't mean that you can. Okay, I know you can write, but can you write a poem? Can you write a book? Something that people can remember.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you make they think of. And that's why, in the end, you learn from people, not only their lifestyles, but the way how to solve problems. Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you're addressing it, this is what you can relate, also into business. Um, I pay more respect. Okay, I respect anyone. I pay more respect to people who have experience. If they have a school where their parents, if I know you can do this in 2 years, then you will get a recommendation from myself for a black belt. Okay, because there you applied already what I told you. You applied your wisdom and turned it into action. Okay. And this is also, if you break up all the martial arts and all the combat systems or whatever, what you learned in sports, it just came really simple. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
vision, vision,
Yep.
decision, and action. Okay. If you have a soft mind, distracted mind, what is the income or the outcome? What
Mm.
is, um, we have to try. And of course, you can be an idol and you can see, I'm not I did not become this person what I'm now because I'm good looking, you know, and it's all because I work harder. Okay, and if you want to be successful at the peak at something or an elite, you have to work your butt off, you know, and you don't do it, within your opening times. It's after that when people sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
much will you sacrifice? And you cannot speak about glory if I don't see any scars of your life. Okay, if you have been through hardships. Um,
That's
and
true.
if
That's true.
you haven't, if you haven't been on the lowest part of your life, and you will see if you talk to grandmasters, not the masters, grandmasters, everyone can tell you about the story of a life where they were really down on the floor.
Mm.
Okay?
Mm.
And how to get up. And that's why this is where I get inspired. And also I have a lot of stories of that. But um, in private, of course, I can share. I can share it. But I think this is part of martial arts because we have to accept the pain, to endure the pain. What is endurance, persistence? This is what you learn in martial arts, not to give up. Okay,
Yeah.
um, that's why people stay average. Why? They give up. Okay, because it's not easy. Okay, it's not fast
Mm.
for what you intake, and you want to be the 1%. That's why. Okay, if you want to be the 1%er, you have to do 99, the 99%, what others don't do. Okay, and have to
Yeah.
swallow it.
Yeah.
Okay, um, and yeah, that's what I'm relating to martial arts, transferring into real life. Okay, and that's why you have the conflict, or I would say your techniques will not be successful because of the mindset. If you have a weak mind, if you go, scared already in the situation, okay, do you think, like playing chess? Okay, taking out the options, and um, and of course, everyone tries to anticipate something. Okay, but
Mm-hmm.
if a violent action, if you haven't been a bouncer or whatever, and when the glasses, fly throwing tables and chairs, and then tell me how to solve this kind of problem and take out these people if 20 people are fighting, you know. So that's why yeah, you can pressure test. Okay, it's not when everything is lighting, shining, stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
this
It's
is when you
different.
pressure test. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is what I endorse people. If you want to collect violent actions, please work as a bouncer somewhere, and you know where. And I know that you have to collect this kind of experience. Otherwise, it's all theoretical. Every theoretical or theory, what you have can be
And
looking
yeah.
good on paper.
Yeah.
Okay, but would you sign it with your blood? I don't know.
That's
You know,
different.
it's your it's your choice, and this is only the wisdom what we had. And
Yeah.
um, referring to the Filipino martial arts, um, for me, and I think the generation who or the ones who were born, okay, not raised, born in a different country, and I must say I was lucky to be raised, with two cultures, the Filipino way and the Western way, if you say so.
Yeah.
Okay, the Western way. What is the Western way? I think it's more structural because the Filipino way is, I wouldn't say that loose, just train, and then in the end you get the whole piece of the cake. Okay, but here in the Western world, we have to have a curriculum where
Yep,
everything's
yep, yep.
okay.
You
One
need to
food,
have a
two to summer,
syllabus. Everything is
you know,
planned.
exactly. Exactly. I would recall that as two different lifestyles. Okay. Um, I would say one is more pressured and the other is not so pressured. Okay. Which is fine. But everything is fine. It's just only different learning methods. Okay, what you're doing. Okay, and this is why I think some Filipino martial artists from the Philippines are having a hard time to set foot in the Western because of course because they're used to that kind of training and we have to adapt. So that's also like in terms of the pandemic. I was um, I had a needless transition from my classes to Zoom to online classes, and that's why I transfer already, and I had to rethink and readjust my teaching. Um, that's why I create algorithms. An algorithm, is a habit what you cannot change. Okay,
Hmm.
because this what get this space, what I space, okay, also of thinking. There's no space for other thinking. You have only to follow that way.
Yeah.
So that's why I created these algorithms of 188 maneuvers. Okay, in fact there are more. Okay, we just really try to make it down so small it is, but it is all it has chapters, and you put it all together, make it small, but it contains everything. Okay, so which makes a testing first more efficient because what is so hard in the Filipino martial arts, of course, you can see maybe choreographies of how many movements. Okay, for them it's okay, okay, which is fine.
Yeah,
But
demos, demos different. Yeah.
if you want to play on a high level, okay, then sure. I haven't presented to the world yet, only to my students. Um, because these maneuvers, although you know most of the things, uh, but the key is timing. Okay, I created a space. Okay, and I call it in three stages of training. Okay, the three stages of training, what you also can learn, and maybe you just rethink about your system, how to teach. First, you do partner exercises. Perfect. Okay, everyone does it. But the hardest thing is to turn over the partner exercises into single exercises, what you can do at
Mm.
home, like dry firing. Okay,
Yep, yep,
what
yep.
what I want to expose is my enhanced thinking, the method, how I do it. Because what I broke down is the same exercise from a partner exercise I could transfer in a solo. I could call it solo exercise. Okay, like dry firing. You can do it at home, anytime, anywhere. You can do it, and the highest level of this kind of training, if you just only rehearse it in your brain without moving. Okay, because I think every high player or warrior he practices all the time. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's why I plant my to my students already to find spots in their life. Okay, on their daily duty, you will find spots. Practice, just practice. Okay, and that's why you will succeed. Not because again we don't look good. Okay, we just practice. That's the key. Okay, this will always be, and the mastery is just only by repeating. Okay,
Yeah,
so,
that's
so
true. That's
and
true.
this isn't how you can measure it. Because if you're good at something, the lesser time you will spend time with, or you can execute it. And this is how I time it. I can really time. Um, if you're really good at what you're doing, you can time yourself what time it takes you to teach something a skill. Okay, and
Mm.
I don't teach if I give classes. This is the magic. I can put so many infos in them, and they don't know it, and it's because it's like I call it. I compare it to a firewall.
Yeah.
For system what you have, my firewall is already installed, and you don't know it. Only when it is triggered. Okay,
Hmm.
and I always give this demo. Um, when I ask my students, doesn't matter or if it trains with me 1 week or maybe 3 years or more. Close your eyes, close your eyes and do what I'm doing, okay? And then they can follow. See, this is how you can pressure it because everyone, of course, you only can be fed what you see, okay?
Yeah.
The danger of thinking is we think too much. Okay, so as a teacher, we have to pre-filter. That's exactly what I'm doing. Okay, some people are interested to different arts or want to learn, but in the end, they want to learn from you. Okay, this is the
Yeah.
if you want to be a teacher. Okay,
Yeah.
why people come back. In fact, it is about relationship. If you're bad about talking to people, or you're hiding yourself in your gym, you don't want to talk to people, then no one will come to your club. That's the point. Okay, so it's not
That's
that you
good.
have to be talkative, but it's also like, okay, did you prepare your elevator pitch? If you have 10, 20 seconds to someone, what will you tell them? Okay,
Mm.
so if you haven't practiced, that's why for me, when I was, nominated or appointed as a representative, as I said, I was starting in my living room, and before we started as a starting five, to prepare for the class, I just rehearsed my teaching in front of a mirror, okay, and just I type myself, okay. I teach in 2 hours, okay, because um, especially what I'm doing, um, I teach them any aspect of it. It's sticks, blades, and empty hands. Of course, some people separate these kind of topics, but people they have to learn as fast as possible that all of these categories can be interchangeable and they can work together and can be
Yeah.
applied at the same manner. Because this is what Filipino martial arts is the beauty. And the second, what stands out for me as a Filipino martial artist or this martial art, not the Southeast Asian. These arts are made for small people. Okay, they are
Hmm.
made for small people. So we are small people. My students are much, especially in the special forces, really big, tall guys. We talk about 120 kilos. Okay, and we are small people. It's how you pressure test it and fight against bigger people. Okay, and try and take them down. Okay, this is how you pressure test your thing. But smaller or weaker or with less knowledge, this is not sports. Okay, where you can win. Here you can I will sell your qualities, about the training. Okay, because if it works for bigger people, then you control situations. That's why I always refer try any technique for bigger, heavier person, because as a student, of course, um, watch the videos, especially the hard ones. Okay, the ukes, so the demo partner, uh, they don't fight back because they're
Yeah.
not resisting. But
Yes, of course.
that's why you have to transport. Of course, how to transfer violence to someone. Of course, everyone has to do a cooperation. Okay, just to understand. This is what's hard for beginners. Okay, because everyone wants to be the bad guy, and then try to push you. Okay, wait for that moment because you have to be really careful about your weaponry because even with the training knife, you can injure someone really badly. Um, we had a sparring session, and one of my students got a scar, okay, on his chest with a dull knife or with a training knife. It was aluminum, okay, and that's oh my god, this happens with aluminum. I didn't expect that, but he had a big scar, you know. Damn, okay, learned my lesson. I'm so sorry. Um, um, and this is where it needs to be slowed down, for fast thinking. And this is what the people are maybe too
Yeah. Everything has
not
to be
emotional
progressive.
and enthusiastic. So that's why we're learning to kill safety first. Okay, so that's
Mm.
also safety first, safety last. This is why in every weapons category you learn. Okay,
Oh,
and try to slow
wow.
down your thinking. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Nice.
um, exactly. So what I said, we live in a really fast world. Any decisions have to be fast and so on. You know, I find it dangerous. Okay, how fast really can go and how long can fast? Even have you a Ferrari. Okay, if you go fast, if you don't refuel it, take your time and enjoy, the Ferrari is nothing worth. You know,
Yeah,
whereas,
that's true. That's
so,
true. That's true.
and in the end,
Oh,
in the
okay.
end, you get exhausted. Okay,
Yeah.
because some part of my life, I was kind of Ferrari. Okay, so I was thinking it was really you don't have time to really to rest and to take maintenance of your body and your soul. Your body will call you back and you're tired. Okay, really tired because
That's very
I
like
wouldn't
it
say I'm a
is.
workaholic, but I work around in my 15 to 16 hours a day, something like that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, within I have my break time, but this is my habit, what I'm doing already. I don't sleep much. I wake up really early, like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I have a full-time job as well, besides the free schools. Um, which will change and accept it, okay? Because um, foremost, beside all the ethos of being a warrior, martial artist, we have to take responsibilities for our body,
Yeah,
for our soul, our
yeah,
mind.
yeah.
And it
On that
starts on the
note,
base, you know,
yeah, um,
and yeah.
yeah. Um, on that note, what are your words for the FMA community?
Let's work together, okay? Um, like what I said, one family, one love, one tribe. Um, I would say let's work in that manner. Let's try to preserve any art. I think this is also this mission of this FMA discussion, not only to display the masters or the landscape around the globe, um, but we are friendly people. Okay, don't find us arrogant or whatever. We want to work. Let's work hard. Okay, this is what
Mm,
I want to endorse. In fact, the community. Let's work hard and make the world safer, not only for us, for our beloved ones. If you take responsibility for raising up a child, taking care of your wife,
yeah,
your mom, your dad, anyone you love. Okay, we have a responsibility. Okay,
yeah,
a politician, FMA. We don't see really much politicians, and I learned really this is the lesson, a life lesson, what I learned from GM Renee Thompson. As politicians, we create peace, and the
yeah.
other ones who don't create peace,
Of
they're the
course.
politicians, right?
Mm,
Okay? And they always create friction. This is a part because, of course, as a representative for society, of course, you stand for the values, the interest. Okay, what is the interest of the society? But can martial artists think that big already? Okay,
mm,
um, let's go for big societies where we have been. Be honest, like in State Bladed. Okay, it started small and then expanded that much that it exploded. Okay,
explode. Yeah,
um,
suddenly.
why? Um, I saw it coming already when it started. Okay, um, but I'm a good-hearted man. Um, but my experience told me already this will not stand long. Why? Okay, because the vision was too. I wouldn't say too small. Okay, um, if you see how FMA societies are led, they're only led by one person, not by 10. Okay, they have a
Mm,
team, okay, who supports them.
yeah,
But in the end, it's the vision of one person, okay? And if this vision of this of thinking and the restrictions and also how I create my society, I have an
yeah,
own playbook how it's created and it's officially accepted by the police here, okay? Is um, if you it's not how would I compare? It's like reigning like a king. Okay, if you put too much democracy in your politics in it, which is fine to add opinions, okay, but in the end, for decision making, there should be focused on one person. That's why I have a special constellation here in Austria. I'm the lifetime president. No one can overrule me, and no one can replace me. And this is
okay,
what you can see as um, because I send this also for my official papers, okay? Because it's run here like a company, and I'm the lifetime president of it. And this is really seldom what you can get because of my status, what I'm doing, and the
yeah,
mission for I would say for the FMA community. Let's work more together. Of course, we expose every man, but I think um, the next Russo, and I want to endorse everyone next year to the Philippines. And I'm still trying to look for sponsors. Maybe someone is watching. Um,
hopefully.
going to the Philippines in March. This is the FMA festival. Okay, where all the
Yeah,
big players
hopefully,
and
hopefully everything is much better by then.
And 1 week later, a new federation will be inducted there. Okay, where I think Grandmaster Renee Thompson sent invitations already. I also invite
Yeah,
anyone to do so. Please PM me or directly Grandmaster Renee Thompson to apply. He has a form for it. Okay, you can make a register association,
yeah.
and they will be also inducted next year. This is 1 week after the FMA festival.
FMA
I don't
Festival.
know exactly at that time, but it's around March next year. And um,
Yeah, I think the whole the
the
Lightning Scientific is behind that federation.
oh,
I've already spoken to Ate Pati about it. So, I mean, I'm really hoping that by March next year, traveling to the Philippines will be
yeah,
better now, even especially coming from the UK. So, yeah.
yeah,
So,
nice. Um, and what does this prevent? If you know the Filipino culture, okay, um, you want that this culture be remembered in a good way. And
yes,
all I can
exactly.
say is um, the friction, and what can you can see also how the world functions. Of course, if you're just working singularity, okay, only have their own base, okay, this will not work out on a long term. That's why I call it one family, one love, one tribe, because
Mhm.
unity, it's about unity, okay. Share. I think we all. I didn't set a limit for myself, and I did okay. I want to achieve this at that time. It just happened, you know. And this is also what I wish for a fellow man to get the recognition of this
Mhm.
and maybe make an income out of it. I'm praying for everyone around the world, not only for the Filipinos, but the whole community. Um, you will see. We the biggest the world is that big enough that we can all live from it. Okay, let's not be greedy.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
true.
um, if we work together and we successful are the ones who are working together, not working alone. And this is what I've seen because I was also an owner of a bar of a club, you know. And of course, if you're just dominating only one culture or one nature, of course you address this kind of people. But what made me more successful is that I invited them all, okay, to one party, okay. Not this is only for coming from this air country or area the other way, okay. I just invited them all and I asked my DJ, okay, make your homework. I want that you welcome any nation what you can see here with their song, but just now popping in the charts. Okay, I want that. Okay, and if you know, going out at night, and I was also a night goer before I was married. Okay, um,
All right.
the the most the most violent actions what you see in clubs is before closing time. Okay, because people are get drunk or different substances, and all I can tell is also music is an indicator. Okay, how people if you at 3 o'clock in the morning because the outing time in Europe is different to US also. Okay, the
Mm.
clubs are open here until 5 o'clock. Okay, or 6 in the morning. Okay, so going out starts at 1 a.m. in the you know, um, and the most violent actions also faced already, and I knew it already. Um, if if the DJs put aggressive music just before the ending or during when people are already on alcohol or something, okay, this create conflict, okay. And
Yeah, that's true.
what people don't know in our area, the fights are started by women, not by men, okay, because
Same here in
um,
the UK.
my, my bouncers, we're all martial artists, okay, and I told them, be careful of of them. And of course, the gentlemen that sent in, okay, and you don't know how mean really women can be because they have all the different weapons. They have their
Mm,
nails, they have the
mm.
hairs, okay, they have the high heels. I've seen a lot of these things, and that's why people fight with each other. So the people step in and the men step in, and that's why this happens. But I see that. So before I see that, I said my guys are ready, to take out to clarify and to neutralize this kind of conflict.
Yeah.
Um, what
Okay.
I've seen, yeah, that's
Yeah.
um,
This has been a very nice interview with you, Guru X.
wow. Thank you
So I've
so
learned a
much.
lot as well. I've learned a lot as well. So, as maybe as a, how do people contact you for like seminars?
you can contact me please on facebook.com/Guro Alex. Okay, which I was because I created it last year or something, and hey, no one took that name. Okay, Guro Alex. Okay, so, wow, amazing. So that's why hopefully you can find me fb.com Guro Alex. Um, you can also follow me on FMA Federation. So I try to channelize it, but for me personally, you can find me either on Alexander Hernandez
Mm.
or Guro Alex on my page. And you can also like and share our content. And if you have followed us, our content, I promote more the other guys than me. Only lately because of this interview. But
Mm.
generally, I would try to promote the art and the people behind it because this is what the artist, in fact, is.
Yeah.
Behind, um,
Yeah.
um, hide behind our shirts or with the connection or relations what we have. But in the
Yeah.
end, it's about connecting people and how we
Yes,
treat each
exactly
other.
that.
And
Yeah.
um, thank you very much. Thank you very much
Thank
in
you
the
very much for
audience.
coming. Thank you
Um,
very much for coming. And
um,
also thank you everybody for those who have been with us for these past 2 hours with my interview with Guru Alex. Thank you.
wow, time flies, and I'm so thankful.
I know. I know. Yeah.
Wow, wow,
Okay.
amazing. Thank you.
Right. See you. Take it easy, man. Take it easy. Stay safe.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye, audience.
Bye.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Okay. So that was the first UK Europe interview. I hope you enjoyed it. And um, this Wednesday, I will be interviewing Grandmaster Anton St. James of the Doce Pares. And Sunday next week, I'll be interviewing Neta Shesminster from Israel. So we do hope that you have a lovely time, everybody. This is Tom Pena signing off.